They tried to board our ship, then met our civilian. Security measures. Marcus put his coffee mug down as Prosperity's dawn hummed through the void between star systems. The cargo bay loaded with the rare earths bound for the Kepler colonies. They looked, to the eye, just what their manifest declared, a normal civilian freighter running regular schedules through sanctioned routes. The bridge was utilitarian and cramped, business and not comfort. Captain Voss was sitting in the central chair, her calloused hands moving easily across the nav console as if she'd spent the last 30 years shipping cargo through the black. 14 hours ETA to Kepler Station, Captain, shouted Marcus from the sensor array, 28 years old. He was the youngest crew member on the 6-person team. But his electronic warfare experience made him eligible for something more than sensor sweep interpretation. Copy that, replied Sarah, her gaze remaining on her charts. How's our cargo, Elena? Elena Vasquez lifted her gaze away from the engineering console, wiping grease-stained hands with a rag. All good, Captain. The magnetic containment fields are stable, and the environmental units are keeping everything within optimal temperature. What she failed to disclose, and what wouldn't be detected on a standard cargo scan, was that underneath the legitimate cargoes of rare earths was something a good deal more tempting. Prototype cores for quantum computers en route to the military's research facilities. The kind of technology that could redefine war, communications, and encryption across human space. The kind of payload some parties would kill for. Communications Officer Park suddenly stood up from his panel. Captain, I'm getting a transmission. On the emergency frequencies, distressed ship, requesting immediate assistance. There was no movement on Sarah's face, but a subtle tensing near her eyes attracted Marcus's attention. In 30 years of running deep space freighters, she'd developed a sixth sense for trouble. Details, David. Citing the merchant ship Lucky Strike and suffering loss of engines and failure of life support. They request permission to come alongside for emergency maintenance and humanitarian aid. We're dead ahead, some 2 million kilometers away. There, drifting along our course, Marcus's pulse was racing as he swept his hands across the sensor controls. Standard procedure for distress beacons was straightforward. Render aid if possible. Maintain a safe distance and always verify identity via proper procedures. It wasn't sitting too well with him, however. Captain, I'm seeing nothing on passive sensors for that sort of range. Could be powered down for conservation of life support. Ventured David, but his tone was skeptical. Sarah stood up and moved to the TAC display. Her movements slow and deliberate. Elena, what's our power level? 60% reactors, everything. Normal? We got a lot of power if we need to jockey. Good. Have David respond to their transmission. Tell them we're maintaining course and stand ready to assist, but they need to transmit crew, manifest, and full ID code for verification. His fingers flew across his console. Transmission sent, Captain. The response came back immediately, and David's face went pale as he listened via headset. Captain, they're demanding that we heave to and prepare for boarding. They say they have sick crew members who need immediate medical attention. The bridge fell silent except for the murmur of the life support gear. Sarah's jaw set just perceptibly, active on all sensors. Full spectrum sweep, Marcus. Marcus's hands moved with mirror-shine efficiency, powering up the massive sensor array on the ship. What had been empty space just a moment ago was immediately populated with contacts. Captain, 3 ships. High-speed movers, military-grade propulsion units, configured for board actions. They had run silent, utilizing our sensor shadow as cover for their approach. Pirates, growled Elena, her hand automatically going for the plasma cutter on her belt. Sarah nodded grimly. Pirate standard procedure. False distress call. Request for inspection under humanitarian pretense. Then, steal the ship and cargo. David, How far away are they? At their present rate of acceleration, perhaps 90 minutes. They're working hard now that they realize we have seen them. Sarah stood and proceeded back towards her captain's chair and hit a set of buttons on her personal console. All hands, this is the captain. We have confirmed hostiles approaching. Go to Protocol 7 immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. Marcus shuddered. Protocol 7 was not defined anywhere within the standard merchant marine manuals. It was out of the ordinary, something which would require special clearance and training which the majority of commercial crews did not receive. Something which turned a typical cargo carrier into a far more lethal vehicle. Throughout the entire ship, latent systems came online. Behind innocuous maintenance panels, weapons came into function. In the cargo bay, robot defense turrets extended, sliding outward on tracks from hidden positions. The ship's computer core, which had been running routine navigational and life support calculations, abruptly expanded its ability for calculation to encompass enormously larger and more complex formulas. Alina, what's the situation on our defense? Grids, Sarah ordered. Elena's fingertips danced on her console, activating whole subsystems that shouldn't be on paper. All automated defense grids are coming online. The point defense guns are powered up and stand ready. The interior security measures are armed and awaiting activation procedures. Marcus, I want you to start electronic warfare planning. Assume that they'll try and jam our communications and penetrate our systems. Already on it, Captain. The firewalls are engaged and I'm deploying counter-intrusion protocols. David looked confused. Sir, what exactly are we dealing with here? I was under the assumption that we are just a cargo carrier. Sarah's face was serious, but not surprised. David, what I'm going to tell you goes no further than this bridge. The Prosperity's Dawn is no ordinary freighter. We're Acutia, under extreme cover for the Colonial Defense Intelligence. Our task is searching out and closing pirate traffic on the major rim trade routes. The young communications officer appeared taken aback. You're saying we're military? Technically, we're military-authorized civilian contractors. Our cargo exists, our destination exists, but we have the capability to deal with exactly the situation we're confronted with. Marcus patched through a call to the tactical screens with the arriving ships. Captain, I'm laying out their approach vectors. 3 ships, classic boarding formation. Leads most likely the command ship to flankers designed to pin us in place and not let us get away. Routine pirate mantra, agreed Sarah. They'll try disabling our engines first, and then they'll call for us to surrender. When we refuse, they'll initiate forced boardings. There was a tone of expectation in Elena's voice. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into. The next hour was devoted to nervous preparation. The crew was as precise as a military detail, for, in a certain way, that's exactly what they were. David manned communications, listening as the pirates coordinated their attack. Marcus set the sensor grids and electronic warfare platforms for the ship. Elena ran diagnostics on programs that didn't even technically exist. Captain, he reported. They're hailing us once again. Same line relating to medical emergencies and humanitarian assistance. Ignore them. They'll show their true colors soon enough. Marcus's sensor screen updated with new information. I'm reading weapons activity on all 3 ships. They're loaded with military-grade plasma cannons, banks of missiles, and what looks like a complement of boarding torpedoes. Torpedoes for boarding. David in effect missiles designed to blast a hole through a ship's hull and deliver armed board and search. Parties into the target ship, Alina explained. Nasty pieces of work. Sarah studied the tactical screen. What do you think their capability is, Marcus? Don't matter too much what it's made for. The lead ship's probable a military corvette conversion, maybe 40 crew. The flankers are converted. civilians, probable 20 crew each. Heavily armed, not too heavily armored. Classic pirate configuration. Hit hard and run fast. Count on intimidation and surprise. And they'll receive a most unwelcome surprise," said Sarah decisively. The pirate ships appeared within 50,000 kilometers, close enough for good. Visual identification. Marcus could see their hulls were painted non-reflective black, designed to minimize sensor SIGs. Weapon ports were prominent, and he could identify the telltale shape of the boarding torpedo launchers. "Captain," he relayed stiffly, his anxiety-racked tone strained. "They're telling us to go into power down and prepare for a board search. They're threatening us that they'll blast us if we do." "A little bit closer," replied Sarah. "We want them committed to the attack run before we make our intentions clear." The pirate ships continued on, fanning out to surround the Prosperity's Dawn and prevent a breakout bid. Marcus watched the tactics screen as they placed themselves into perfect breadif position for a joint assault. "Incoming transmission," he announced. "Audio only. Put it on speakers." A rough, electrically ravaged voice rang out across the bridge. "All commercial shipping Prosperity's Dawn. Commander Briggs, speaking for the Free Traders Alliance. You are to power down your engines immediately and be ready for board inspection. Any opposition or trying to evade us will be answered with the sinking of your ship." Sarah lifted her communications headset. "This is Captain Voss of the Prosperities. Dawn. We're a legitimate merchant ship flying registered cargo for Kepler Station. We do not recognize the authority of the so-called Free Traders Alliance. You need not identify us, Captain. You have 60 seconds to comply, or we'll disable your ship and take what we need by force." Sarah killed the transmission and looked. Around the bridge, all hands, battle stations. "Alina, take all defense systems online." Embedded into the hull, power-up units came into operation with deadly precision. Point defense guns deployed themselves from covert locations, their aiming routines integrating into the central computer. In the cargo bay, magnetic accelerators extended themselves out of false bulkheads. The hull itself began rearranging as the armor plates slid into position, protecting essential equipment. "Defensive systems are online and running, Captain," answered Alina. "All automatic procedures are armed and waiting for your command." Marcus observed his sensor screen as the pirate ships began their final approach. They're dropping boarding torpedoes. 3 each per ship, 9 total incoming. The boarding torpedoes moved through space for the Prosperity's Dawn. High explosive warheads designed for blowing a hole through the cargo ship's hull and delivering armed pirates into the belly of the vessel. It was a tried pirate tactic, one which had worked time and time again against defenseless merchant ships, but the Dawn of Prosperity was far from defenseless. "Activating point defense systems," announced Sarah. The automatic defense screen came into deadly action. Hundreds of 6-inch rapid-firing guns shot out of recesses the full length of the hull, their computer aiming circuits calculating intercepts with clinical coldness. The first boarder torpedo was blown to pieces 3 kilometers clear of the ship, its explosive charge flying away safely into space. The second and the third followed a few seconds later. Marcus watched in awe as the ship's defense system methodically worked its way through all incoming torpedoes, all board torpedoes. "Neutralized, Captain. Tow. The pirates are retreating their approach." From the external ship's cameras, they could discern the pirate vessels lumbering under the effect of their botched assault. The Prosperity's Dawn had turned out to be far more than a mere cargo carrier. "Incoming transmission," declared David. "They want to know what the real nature of our ship is." Her smile was cold. "Tell them they're just going to have to find out." Plan for counterboarding measures, Alina. What followed was only feasible for a standard merchant ship. Stealthy launch bays along the hull of the Prosperity's Dawn opened up, and military standard assault shuttles emerged. These were not armed. for human border crews. These carried something far more intimidating: fully automated combat drones armed with military-standard AI. Preparing for a hunter-killer mission, LNO-24 slim combat drones appeared out of the cargo vessel's clandestine bays. Their high-thrust propulsion capable of accelerating when approaching the enemy targets and slaughtering their human pilot counterparts. The unmanned aerial vehicles appeared armed with precision plasma munitions, electronic warfare equipment, and AI programming that made them brutally efficient under close-quarters combat scenarios. The pirates had been expecting a defenseless cargo crew armed with nothing more formidable than emergency sidearms and desperation. They found themselves, however, under assault by military-grade automated weaponry system operating with lethal efficiency. Marcus followed the drone swarm as it descended on the pirate ships. The drones are hitting the initial target. They're using coordinated attack procedures, aiming for the engine complexes and weapon clusters. The pirate flagship tried defense using point defense weapons, but the drones were too fast, too numerous, and too smart. They divided into attack groups, some providing cover fire and the others attacking vulnerabilities on the pirate craft's hull. "They're flying on secondary power," Marcus reported. "The drones are changing course for the second target." David was monitoring communications traffic. "Captain, I'm getting emergency broadcasts from pirate ships. They're demanding immediate assistance and claiming they're under assault by unidentified military units." "Too late for that," she replied grimly. The second pirate ship attempted to retreat, but the combat drones were faster. They came swooping down like a swarm of angry insects, the plasma guns carving through armor plates like a hot knife through butter. The ship was neutralized within a couple of minutes, the crew frozen and immobile. The Dawn's desperate attempt at collision came from the third pirate vessel, but the protective configuration on the cargo carrier had been devised for just the event. Inertial thrusters that could produce lateral movement fired exactly in tandem, moving the gigantic carrier just far enough away from the pirate carrier's path while preserving the optimum positions for firing. "All three pirate vessels are disabled," announced Marcus. "Engines offline, guns inoperable. Life support on but limited." Sarah stood up from her captain's chair. "Elena, call the drones back and establish boarding parties. We're going to have to seize those ships and gather some information on their operation." "Captain," he said tentatively, "the crews, there may be 90 pirates on those three ships." The face of Sarah was cold. They made their decision when they chose to ambush what they thought was an unarmed merchant vessel. They're going to find what happens when civilians have military equipment and the authority to use it. The combat drones returned into their covert bays, but the offense of Prosperity's Dawn was barely exhausted. Hid within the cargo bay, behind fictitious bulkheads and underneath real freight containers, was a complete military boarding and detention facility. Powered armor, high-end weapon platforms, and non-lethal suppressor technology capable of putting entire ship crews permanently out of commission without lethal harm. Elena was suited up in powered armor, had been hidden within what appeared to be a standard maintenance locker. Marcus was suited up in a high-end electronic warfare suit that would enable him to deal directly with captured ship equipment. David, while still unsure what the purpose was for their mission, was equipped with high-end communications gear for intelligence duties. Remember, Sarah reminded before they stood to board the disabled pirate vessels. These are the kind of thieves who rob defenseless colonists and merchants. They have killed crews, raided cargoes, and bullied the rim trade corridors for years. Today, they ran up against the wrong target. The boardings were executed with military precision. The electronic equipment on the Prosperity's Dawn had been set up not just to dissuade pirates, but captured them alive for questioning and prosecution. The non-lethal gas moved through the air, support system on the pirate ships, and had the crews awed to combat within a matter of minutes. Automated medical facilities maintained the stable but incapacitated vital signs of every pirate. Marcus infiltrated the pirates' computer system, copying terabytes worth of data on their modus operandi, their bases, targets, and criminal network contacts. Alina secured their guns and equipment, itemizing everything for intelligence evaluation. All 3 pirate crews had been secured within the covert detention facility aboard the Prosperity's Dawn within 6 hours. The pirate ships themselves were secured to the hull of the cargo ship and were to be handed over to the Colonial Defense Authorities along with their crews and all evidence of their crimes. David manned his communications console, still struggling to process what he'd just witnessed. "Captain, I'm receiving confirmation from Colonial Defense Command. They're sending us to the nearest military depot for prisoner interrogation and transport." Sarah nodded. "Course set for Firebase Meridian. We'll bring our prisoners aboard and file our mission report." The Dawn of Prosperity proceeded on its course, and Marcus reflected on what they had accomplished. They had presented themselves to the outside world as a mere cargo ship repelling pirates. In reality, the situation was far more subtle. They were part of a fleet of coup ships that prevailed throughout human space, bartering on the pretense of commercial vessels in a bid to bring pirates and criminal organizations into the limelight. The bot defense measures they'd have in place were far more advanced than military technology. They represented a new philosophy for protecting the world's trading routes. Instead of relying on the tried-and-true naval patrols, which could be avoided or outflank, it created a system where a merchant ship could be far more than it appeared. Captain Alina observed, scanning the tactics for their battle. The pirates had no chance. Our defense system was for countering boardings with extreme prejudice. If they had known what they were attacking, then they wouldn't have made the attempt. "That's the idea," replied Sarah. "The uncertainty factor. All pirate fleets operating on human space must wonder if the next target they acquire could be armed with military-level protection technology. It tilts the entire risk versus reward ratio." Marcus mentioned intel reports lifted from the pirate terminals they'd captured. From their logs, they have attacked 17 merchant vessels the past 6 months, killed 43 crew members, raided millions of credits worth of cargo, and sold 12 colonists into bondage. His face went pale. Slavery. They were trading human beings. "It's more common than you'd think on the frontier," Sarah replied. "Colonials en route to new worlds, merchant ships plundered during raids, even children stolen from frontier towns. The pirate crews have entire squads specializing in the smuggling of human beings." Elena's face was serious. "Well, no one else is going anywhere out of that cell. The information we received will help the police close the entire operation." The Dawn Prosperity continued on into space, its cargo deck still loaded with legitimate freight bound for Kepler Station. To anyone watching them, they appeared perfectly like what they ought to be, a routine merchanter keeping to itself. The covert military facilities had retreated back into their secret compartments. The auto-defense platforms had powered down, and the captured pirate ships were lashed to their hull in a configuration that looked normal for standard salvage procedures. Marcus kept up long-range communications as the tail of the pirate raid made its way through the shipping circuits. The other merchant skippers were relaying the account, praising the crew of the Prosperity's Dawn for their heroic stand against incredible odds. None were suspecting the real nature of what they had seen. "Captain," answered David, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from the Colonial Defense Command. They request if we need assistance or if we can continue our mission." Sarah smiled. "Tell them we're on target. Cargo's secured, crew's safe, and we'll be delivering on schedule to Kepler Station." The deeper into human space they flew, Marcus couldn't help but ponder the ethics of their mission. The pirates they had apprehended had been ruthless robbers who killed no one but sparked no one. The robot defense system had been designed to disable, not kill, giving the pirates more respect than the pirates had given their victims. But he also understood the broader implications of what they represented. Coup ships like the Prosperity's Dawn were redesigning the face of war in space. Trading vessels armed with military equipment operating under deep cover, turning the pirates' own tactics against them. Alina was seated at her engineering console, exercising the operating figures on their defense system. All systems ran within normal parameters, Captain. The auto-defense array neutralized the boarder's torpedoes without injury to our own ship. The hunter-killer drones completed their mission parameters without losses. And the non-lethal suppression systems worked just fine. All 90 pirates are secured and steady. Medical evaluation shows no permanent harm caused by the suppression gas or boardings. Sarah nodded agreeingly. Good. That's essential for the process of prosecution. We want them alive and coherent so that they can be tried. He was monitoring communications traffic out of the outer colonies. Captain, I'm seeing reports of increased pirate activity within the Vega sector. 3 merchant vessels attacked in the past 7 days to completely destroyed with all hands. That's our mission next, she assured. After we finish our current cargo run and exchange our detainees, we'll be on course for Vega under a new cover identity. Marcus understood. The Dawn of Prosperity would just continue running its missions. System after system, appearing always just a routine cargo carrier. Pirates would continue pursuing what they thought were soft targets, only to discover they had just assaulted a military vessel under cover. The psychological impact was just as important as the immediate interruption of pirate activity. Rumors would be whispered through the criminal underworld of armed merchant vessels striking back with military precision. Pirates would be more circumspect, more frightened, less prone to attack incoming ships willy-nilly. Alina, Sarah wanted to know, how do you think our cover held up? Did you think anyone suspected us of being more than we appeared? Alina read the tactical reports. The pirate attack came too quickly for routine sensor passes. We were just a freighter that had gotten lucky with some military standard defense gear. Nothing that suggests we're actually a military operation. Good. Proper operational security is the key to the success of the Q-ship program. Heading into Firebase Meridian. The intelligence packages they had recovered were set up on the pirate computers. Names, where they operate, finances, communications, logs, everything had to be gathered into the overall criminal enterprise that had been operating here. The Firebase appeared on their sensors as a massive military base. Guns and defense platforms protruding every which way. Military ships moved in neat patterns within and outside the station, and Marcus could see the characteristic signs of colonial defense fast attack craft on sentry duty. This is Firebase Meridian Control, was the professional voice on there. Communications circuit. We have you on approach vector, Prosperity's Dawn. Please transmit authorization codes and be prepared for inspection. Sarah input a convoluted code on her command console. Transmitting now, Meridian Control. Acknowledgement confirmed. You're cleared for docking at Bay 7. The prisoner transfer teams are waiting. The docking proceeded without incident. The Prosperity's Dawn sliding into the massive docking bay under the guidance of the automated systems. Troops in full battle dress stood ready to accept their captured pirates into custody, and intelligence officers stood ready to sift through the information they had gleaned. The Firebase's intelligence chief, Colonel Martinez, met them outside. The airlock? Martinez was a rugged woman in her 50s, with the bearing of a person who'd spent decades serving among the grittiest convicts in human space. Captain Voss, she said, reading the mission briefing from her tablet. Very impressive. 90 pirates apprehended, 3 vessels seized, and a complete intelligence package on the entire mission. Just doing our job, Colonel. A job like no other. It's the most dangerous job in the colonial defense forces. You're on your own, deep cover, no backup but your auto systems. Marcus could tell Martinez understood the true scope of what they did. Accomplished. The coup ship program wasn't a string of one-on-one pirate interdictions. It was a case of fundamentally changing the security environment within human space. The information you have gathered will allow us to target 17 distinct pirate cells which have been operating within 4 star systems, Martinez continued. We expect it'll result in the capturing or neutralization of over 300 criminals and the freeing up of dozens of slaves and hostages. Elena was satisfied with the colonel's remark. Their mission had been more than a case of defending themselves against attack. They had given a serious setback to organized crime in human space. What's our next assignment? Sarah asked. Colonel Martinez consulted her tablet. You'll be getting a brief rest and refit and then moving under the cover identity of an agri-supply ship into the Vega sector. Intelligence suggests a major pirate federation is mustering for coordinated raids on the farming colonies. He was getting a glimpse into the scope of their operations. How many coup ships operate within human space? That's classified information, replied Martinez, a grin flashing across his face. But I can reveal the program's been a bigger success than anyone initially predicted. Pirate attacks on commercial vessels have decreased by 40% where the Q ships are deployed. The prisoner transfer ran smoothly, with every pirate cataloged, snapped for a photograph, and run through the military justice system. Medical staff verified that none had received permanent injury from the non-lethal restraining systems, so their future trials could run without a hitch. Marcus had helped the intelligence analysis team untangle the encrypted files they'd recovered from the pirates' computers. The scope of the criminal outfit was astounding: smuggling outfits that spanned dozens of star systems, corruption that ran into the colonial governments, and alliances with respectable firms that had served as fronts for criminal activity. This is bigger than we had initially thought, one of the intelligence analysts observed, reading through the reports. Those were not just autonomous pirates. They were a centrally organized criminal outfit with connections throughout all human space. Alina assisted the technical personnel in inspection of the pirate ships intercepted. The ships were made up of a mixture of hijacked military hardware and modified commercial vessels. But the ships also had technology that should not be in the hands of thieves. Captain, she told Sarah, this gear includes some military-class equipment. The pirates enjoyed the advantages of the best sensor arrays available. Military-grade ordnance, communications gear protected with encryption. Inside information, afraid it had to be. Someone with clearance into the military procurement process was tipping the pirates. Colonel Martinez read the technical analysis with growing concern. This suggests the pirate group had infiltrated colonial defense requisition procedures. We're going to have to begin a broad-scale security investigation. The possible implications were troublesome. Pirates might discover military intelligence and find coup ships, guest schedules for their own patrols, and attack the most costly cargo ships. The entire Q ship venture could be compromised. Colonel Sarah continued, we ought to accelerate the deployment schedule. In the event the security breach materializes, we need to be swift and get a step ahead of it. Martinez nodded. Affirmative. Your next ops on the highest clearance. You'll be operating on limited communications with command, and you'll be relying entirely on your automated gear and crew experience. Now that the Prosperity's Dawn was preparing to depart Firebase Meridian, Marcus reflected on the growth of their mission. What had once been a routine cargo run had become something much larger. They were no longer merely intercepting pirates. They were untangling a criminal conspiracy that threatened the safety of human space. Its automated installations had been equipped with fresh defense capabilities, fresh electronic warfare suites, and fresh intelligence collectors. The secret military gear was more sophisticated than ever before, but it was more essential than ever before that they maintain their cover for non-combatants. All hands, the voice on the intercom was that of Sarah. Prepare for departure. Next mission will be into disputed space, where pirate activity is most intense. All hands must be ready for anything. Alina ran final system checks on all equipment, noting that their defense capability was at optimal strength. Marcus updated their electronic warfare tactics, expecting to encounter more sophisticated criminal organizations. David practiced their assumed cover identity, memorizing the details that would make them appear like respectable farm suppliers. As the dawn of prosperity pulled out of Firebase Meridian and got underway for the Vega sector, Marcus looked up into the stars and wondered what was ahead for them. The pirates they had captured had only been the beginning. Out there, somewhere, criminal organizations with the potential for military intelligence were no doubt planning their next moves. But they would find that the mission of the Q-ships had also gone through a transformation, the Prosperity's dawn. And similar ships were a new episode in the pirate war. They were no longer just safeguarding the merchant vessels. They were reversing the roles and tracking the marauders and striking with the pirates' own tactics against them. The automatic defense system hummed softly within its hidden compartments, ready for instant discharge. The assault drones stood motionless within their covert bays, computer minds continually refining combat algorithms. The non-lethal suppressors stood ready to make entire enemy crews non-functional without inflicting permanent harm. Sarah was seated in her captain's chair, reading intelligence reports on pirate activity within the Vega sector. Alina was working at her engineering console, keeping the ship's covert military equipment up and running. Marcus was keeping busy aiding David, keeping their communications secure and their cover identity intact. They looked like just another cargo hull trudging through human space to the naked eye. Below deck, however, they were among the most sophisticated tools that humankind had against organized crime. The pirates that had thought they had soft targets on their hands had no idea they were about to become the hunters. The Prosperities. Dawn pushed on into the void, carrying honest cargo to honest docks, flying the perfect cover that made the mission a feasible one. Below the mundane exterior, however, were the tools of war, crude by those knowing that the best defense was sometimes to be outwardly completely defenseless. The stars whizzed above as they drove deeper into space, towards their second battle, with the thieves that robbed non-combatants throughout human space. And when it came, the pirates would be taught the same lesson their predecessors had learned, that appearances could be deceptive, that civilian ships could be far more than they seemed, and that the human species' response to predators was neither surrender but becoming a better predator. The automatics kept their quiet vigil, able instantly to transform a humble cargo ship into an instrument of justice. And out there, within the blackness between the stars, the hunt continued.